Okay, here we are with the case from Zuri's BLaw review. First off, I documented the facts of the case, the number of original copies and the price she charged per copy, the royalty, the school license, the app developer fee and the increase from that fee, the app designer fee and the increase from that fee, the ad cost per college per semester, the ad sales increase, the minimum price, the maximum price, the sales months, and the goal. Okay. Basically, what we're dealing with is an income statement model, and the quantity has several parts. I broke them out into multiple parts that you can see rather than having it one big long equation. It doesn't matter as long as you get the right answer, but we'll deal with that in a second. Um, the Now the key here is actually one of the key problems that people are having here is that the equation is quantity per month, 500 divided by price per month, but this is over the course of a year or over 9 months. So we're going to need to deal with that once we get down here, and we'll deal with this as per year. Just a reminder. So, at any rate, the number of the decisions were price, whether or not to use the designer, whether or not to use the developer, and then whether or not to use ads. Number of schools wasn't explicitly stated in the case, but it was suggested by the price of the ads. We'll start off with one school, and we'll discuss that later. So, the quantity was 500 divided by price. The additional quantities for the developer, the designer, and the ads. Actually, let's put these in the same order so that it's easier to deal with. Are just a series of if statements. So let's go ahead and fill these decisions in as yeses or ones is what I'm coding them as. And so for the designer, if use the designer is equal to 1, then what we would use there is the additional, because of the designer, would be this 100% times the base quantity. Otherwise, the additional is 0. Okay? Now we're going to do the same thing for the developer. So for the developer, it equals if the developer decision is equal to 1, then the developer increase times the base quantity, otherwise 0. And we'll test them all at once. And then finally for ads, if the choice was to use the ads, then it would be the ad increase times the base quantity. Otherwise, it's 0. So when I change ads to 0, additional quantity for ads goes to 0, for developer, and then for designer. So that works the way I expect it to. Now, revenue is going to be equal to, as it always is, price times quantity, but this is times sales months, and also times the number of schools. Okay, so it's 4,500 a year, and we're gonna have to do the same thing with cost of goods sold. So for cost of goods sold, that'll be equal to our quantity times 9 times number of schools, and you could have multiplied it out to make it simpler for you. I apparently like to make things difficult. Times that 35 cents that we're paying on royalty, because that's the only thing that goes up directly in proportion to the number that we sell. So our cost of goods sold is $15.75. So we're clearing $29.25 the way this is set up right now. Okay, now the school license is kind of a fixed thing. It's $1,500 per year per school, so $1,500 times the number of schools. The app developer cost us. Well, it's an equation. So it's if we are using the developer, then it is the app developer fee. If not, it's 0. And the app designer is if the designer is equal to 1, then it is the designer fee, else that is 0. And then finally, ads. So if we're using the ads, then we're paying the ad cost per college per semester. So we're going to need an assumption here. Else we're doing 0. So my assumption is that the semesters per year is 2. So if I change the ads to 1, the cost is 2,000, which is 2 times 1,000, which is awesome. Developer to 1, I'm paying the developer fee, and the designer to 1, I'm paying the designer fee. So all of that works out. And we have our complete model. Of course, gross profit is the difference between gross margin and total expenses. If you did it, you might have had a tax rate because Zuri technically needs to pay for her tuition with her after-tax income. Right now, we are looking at her clearing $2,800, $2,900, which is not nearly enough to pay for school. If she charges $10 per app, it goes up to $6,700, but it's still not enough. If she increases the number of schools, however, to 5, she's got enough to pay for school. But if you left that part out, I probably selected it as right. Remember, the key thing was to have the structure, to have the facts in your assumption, to figure out what the choices were, and to have the basic format of being an income statement. That right there was worth 60%. Everything else came after that. This is finishes. And as far as optimizing it, if we go to Solver, and this might look a little different to you. This might look a little different to you PC people. I'm running this on a Mac right now. I have to reboot Solver to get it to go. All right. So if we were using Solver, my objective is gross profit by changing variable cells, which are all of these. What are my constraints? Well, my price has to be less than or equal to my maximum price. And my price has to be greater than or equal to my minimum price. And all of my decisions have to be integers. And all of these decisions have to be greater than or equal to 0. And all of these decisions have to be less than or equal to 1. And it didn't say how far she could go, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, there really isn't more than 10 schools in the DC area, so that the number of schools has to be less than or equal to 10 that have business schools. And okay, so I have my objective, I have my changing cells. I have my letter, I have my changing cells. I'm gonna go ahead and solve this, and the solver goes up, sets up the problem, and comes back with the answer. And the answer is basically do not use the ads, use the maximum number of schools, use the designer, and use the developer. So if the maximum number of schools turns out to only be 1, I'm betting the answer would have been the same. We can run it again at 7856. If I add in the ads, it goes down. So the ads don't help us. They actually hurt us. And however many schools she can get to, she kind of needs 4, at least 5 if she wants to pay her tuition. And that ends Zuri's BLaw review.